the dollar lose its value for the last two previous week. You can see the last two previous week, dollar lose value. This was caused after the ceasefire announcement. Remember, you see the dollar fails to break higher and decide to fall after the ceasefire announcement. We can also notice if we go, for example, check the S&P, which is the 500 companies in United States, the great companies in United States. This is the indices. You can see during the agitation or before the ceasefire, the market was dropping, and then we recovered very fast after the ceasefire of 10 days. We pretty much blew past the previous all-time high, which is very, very impressive. So this proved that the market shift from the risk off environment to risk on environment. So investor or institution, hedge fund, whatever you want, decide to enter again in this market. And if we go back, for example, to the DXY, so this proof, for example, the US dollar, when we switch to the risk on environment, US dollar lose is its safe haven character. So that's why you can see currency like OZ, NZD taking value because they are considered like a risk on currency. So if we check quickly the calendar for this upcoming week, the important announcement we need to pay attention is on Monday, we have inflation data on Canadian dollar to pay attention. On Tuesday, we also have inflation data on New Zealand's Kiwi dollar. We have some jobs data on pounds, very interesting. And then we have the retail sales on US dollar to pay attention. And then we have inflation on pound again. On Thursday, we have some growth data on the Eurozone, United Kingdom and Europe. So pay attention with the PMI data. The unemployment claim as usual, PMI on USD dollar, and we have some retail sales on the pound. So let's analyze the DXY quickly. So for the DXY, as you already know, we're still in this monthly channel. Price is still stuck, you see, around this demand zone right there. So I talk about the scenario that we could see some range between this level on the dollar. So it seems like we are ranging in monthly time frame because we failed to break this level. So you see the month is already bearish, so price is actually holding around this support. Maybe we could continue to target the bottom of the range. I don't know, but it's clear the momentum is very bearish on monthly time frame. Let's go down to the weekly time frame. On weekly time frame, I still think the weekly structure is bullish from this low to this high, supporting by this monthly demand. You know, as long as we are not breaking this demand, I still think price could continue higher. That's what I'm thinking right now on weekly time frame. So for the next week, I have on sell side, I want to target this low or even this level. But on buy side, we could potentially retarget this level, and even though the imbalance right there. So I like to spot the two sides because in the market we have seller and buyers. So let's go down to the daily. So on daily time frame, what do we see? I said the daily time frame switch bearish. So we are bearish from this high to this low currently, but because the weekly time frame is superior to the daily time frame, so that's why I want to consider the weekly time frame. So if I take my Fibonacci level and measure my last weekly order flow bullish, we start from here and measure this movement. We can see price just lands around the 50% of this movement. So we can see we are in discount zone on this weekly movement. So it's pretty much a good zone to buy, to start buying, because we are in discount zone clearly. So I'm expecting with the configuration of the last candle, I'm expecting price to rebound. Oh, excuse me. With the correct configuration of the last candle, I'm expecting price to bounce a little bit. So maybe target this high and this high on buy side. I still mark up this low where we could potentially see another rejection of this low. We target and start to go again. Let's go down to the 4-hour. I still have this gap price that we couldn't fill totally, so we filled partially. So I'm expecting in the future price to came target the rest of this gap right there. We couldn't fill in the past. So yeah, that's why I think we could see some rebounds maybe after breaking this high. This is the structure, for example. If we break this previous high, retest, I will start to buy the the dollar. Okay. On forward time frame, the structure, I will say we are bearish. We are bearish from this high to this low. So expecting some retracement of this 4-hour order flow. So if I take my Fibonacci, we will see from this high to this low, you will see the 50% is overlapping perfectly around this gap price. So yeah, I think I will start to 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 find some buying setup to the buy side, because we could potentially see a rebound of dollar for the upcoming week. So I want to be bullish for this upcoming week on the dollar. Another scenario is if, for example, we fail to bounce, for example, we break and close below this low, then I think the dollar will continue target this level. Okay, but my ideal scenario will be a rebound of the dollar to target these highs. The next pair is Euro USD. So Euro USD, I'm still bullish on monthly time frame from this low to this high. As I said on my previous market outlook, I still think the Euro USD is overbought. So in long term, I said in long term, I want to see the Euro USD drop, at least targeting the 50% mark of this channel. You see, so but with the ceasefire and all the things going around the Middle East, we saw a rebound of the Euro USD to the upside. But my long term target, as I said, and taking with the consideration that we could potentially see a rebound of the dollar, as I explained previously, I want to see some rejection of these highs, maybe a new drop of the Euro USD. Okay, let's go down to the quickly to see it clearly. So yeah, we start to see some rejection right there last week. We reject this high, so I will not be surprised if we for the next week we reject and targeting this imbalance to fill this imbalance at least for the next week on the sell side. On the buy side, if price wants to keep continue higher, we could potentially target this high. And don't forget that the weekly order flow is bearish. You see, we are bearish from this high to this low. We break this low, you can see. So this is just a pullback, I would say, around the premium zone. You see, so that's we can see clearly on daily time frame. You see, if I take my Fibonacci to show you, you see price retrace around the discount, the premium zone, excuse me. So it seems like if we see the candle from the last Friday, we close pretty much with some rejection of this high. You see, reject this the top of this supply. We reject the top of this supply. So with this rejection, this could be a potential sign, a good sign to going going down again. Okay. So yeah, on daily time frame, I want to see some drop around this imbalance right there. Okay. Let's go down to the 4-hour. On 4-hour time frame, you can see the structure is bullish. We are bullish from this low to this high. That's because the weekly time frame is superior to the daily time frame or the 4-hour time frame. We just need a shift on 1-hour time frame structure to start to sell this market again. So I just want to see the 1-hour time frame alignment with the weekly order flow bearish. So in lower time frame, I want to see some shift on 1-hour time frame to start to sell again, something like that. Okay, so yeah, we have some target right there, this imbalance. It seems like we already shift. Let's go down again on 1-hour. Yeah, it seems like we already shift the 1-hour structure. You see, just shift. So maybe at the beginning of the week, I will wait some retracement around there, even higher if price allow me that to find a setup to sell this market towards this zone. Okay, so I'm bearish on Euro USD. That's my plan on this pair. The next one is the pound USD. So on pound USD, we are in monthly time frame. Is a little bit different because I started to see some sort of range right there. See, we are ranging on monthly time frame on the current price action. We are ranging, but if we go, for example, to weekly time frame, if we focus on the last price action, we can see we are bullish from this low to this high. So the last weekly order flow or the weekly structure is bullish like that. So this is just a retracement around the demand zone, and we start to see a rebound after the ceasefire. So yeah, because I am bullish, I want to be bullish on USD dollar. That's why I want to see some rejection or a drop on the pound USD dollar, maybe around this imbalance right there, similar to Euro USD in a sense. So, but I think Euro USD have a better price action than the pound USD, but the logic is the same. I want to see a strong dollar. If we see a strong dollar, I want to find a sell setup to the downside. So on sell side, my target will potentially be this imbalance right there. You see, on the buy side will be maybe around this supply zone right there. At least we could potentially see a rejection of this supply zone and then maybe start to sell around there. But let's see on the daily time frame. So on daily time frame, we start to see some rejection last week. We reject pretty much this imbalance right there. So similar to the Euro USD, with this rejection, we could potentially see a continuation to the downside. That's pretty much a good sign. Let's go down to the 4-hour. On 4-hour, we start to see a 4-hour order flow bullish from this low to this high, you see. But because I want to see the USD dollar strong for the upcoming week, I want to see at least a break of this low to start to sell this pair. If we are not breaking this low, I will not engage in this pair. Maybe we could potentially see another bounce again, rejecting this high, and then I want to sell again. So if I don't see that, I will not engage in these trades. But if I have to choose between Euro USD and pound USD, I will most likely trade the Euro USD because we already break the previous low on 1-hour time frame. I think this is not the case on, you see, this is not the case on pound USD right now. But idea on this pair is still the same. So want to find some setup to sell around this level. The next one is Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar on monthly time frame, you can see we have already reject this high one time. We reject, but I thought price will at least retrace around or fill completely this gap, but we feel a little bit of this gap and we rebound immediately. So let's prove that Aussie regain some strength, and it's also because we shift again on risk on environment, and Aussie is a risk on currency, so that's why we get another strength on this pair. So the momentum is still bullish, so it seems like the next target will be this high. So because we already react on this one, but we couldn't achieve a lower price, so I assume or want to see the next target around this level. Okay, so let's go down to the weekly time frame. What do we have? So on weekly time frame, we are still bullish from this low to this high, so the trend is bullish clearly. So for the upcoming week, my next target on buy side, as I said, will be this level, which corresponds to this level. So on sell side, I mark up this support zone where we could potentially target before continue higher, or even though the last support zone right there, which corresponds to this zone, is potentially the zone where price could bounce before continuing higher. Okay, so I could mark up this imbalance, but yeah, this is a potential target also where price could reverse before continuing higher. It's a possibility. So let me mark up this. I just forgot to mark up this zone right there. Up balance this here on weekly time frame. Okay, right. So that's it. So on sell side, I have this zone, and this zone to target price in case price decide to retrace before continue the movement higher. Okay, so let's go down to the daily time frame. So on daily time frame, we can see we clearly seems like we shift bullish. So the last daily order flow is bullish. So from this low to this high, clearly. So what do we expect once we pretty much break the previous high? So we could expect some retracement with the strength, the potential rise on the US dollar. We could potentially see some retracement. So where we could retrace. So if I take my Fibonacci and measure the last day order flow, you can see the 50% is around there. So overlapping with the point of control from the last month, which could be potential zone. In a further discount price, we have the imbalance I mark up in weekly time frame. So I don't really say that price could trace all the way long on this zone, but what I want to say is a potential zone where price could rebound before continuing the movement higher. So on OZ, I want to take advantage of the potential rise on the dollar to maybe make a counter trade. This is a counter trade because the daily, remember the daily order flow is bullish. So potentially touch a trade to the downside will be a counter trade. So be very careful on this one. So let's go down to the 4 hour. On 4 hour, let me get rid of the Fibonacci tools. What do we have on 4 hour? On 4 hour, we can clearly see we are bullish on 4 hour. So the last order flow for a bullish starts from this low to this high. So we could expect some retrace. We have some demand zone right there. We have another one right there where we could potentially see a rebound. So because if you are a type of trader who don't want to trade counter trade, maybe wait price reach around this zone to start to buy again because the trend is up, the higher time frame is up. So yeah, again, if you want to take some counter trade, maybe wait, maybe a break of this low retest before taking your shot, and be very aggressive on your risk management. So for example, if you take an entry there, stop there, if price reach there, put your stop to break even, because remember we are in a higher time frame momentum, we are bullish. So taking a trade on the downside will be a counter trade. So for me, I will see what how price will develop. Maybe we could see a continuation, is a possibility to target at least this high. And maybe this is where we could see a huge drop and maybe take advantage of the drop. We will see. This will depend on what the dollar wants to do on the upcoming week. Okay. The next one is Kiwi dollar. So on Kiwi dollar monthly, I nothing to do. We pretty much ranging. If I take the biggest picture, we are ranging clearly. So last week I was expected a drop around this level, but we can see we reject this low price reverse. At this point, we reject again the yearly open, which is the blue this blue support right there. So we reject very strong, and we pretty much target the this support right there. I mark up. So yeah, the momentum is bullish, but let's see on weekly time frame. Weekly time frame, yeah, a lot of range. You can see we're still in a range right there. So last week, if we zoom out, we could say we are in a bearish weekly structure from this high to this low. This is a possibility, but when I focus on the recent price action start, maybe right there, we can see we are in range clearly. We are ranging. So let's go down, or before going down, if we focus on the last week, we close bullish, but you can see we reject this level. So for the next week, on buy side, if price want to continue, maybe target this level, or even at least this at the very end, the very last target will be this level. Okay, but because I want to see some strength on US dollar, I will be more focused on sell side. And on sell side, I want to target, you see we have some imbalance right there, you see. So on sell side, I want to target this level first, and this could potentially my second level on sell side to target. Okay, let's go down to the daily. On daily time frame, what do we have? You can see the daily order flow is bearish from this high to this low. So you can see we break this level. So this is just a retracement of the last daily order flow. Why? Because if I measure this last order flow daily, you can see price retrace, we are around the 50%, above the 50%. So we are in premium zone. So in premium zone, we we expect to sell price in premium zone right there. We expect to sell price. So we can see we already have some rejection with this week, last week, this rejection of this resistance. So yeah, I'm expect for the upcoming week maybe a return around this level at least. Okay, so let's go down to the 4 hour. 4 hour, we even though we are bullish on 4 hour from this low to this high, so the daily is remain bearish. So the daily is superior to the 4 hour order flow. So because we are in daily order flow bearish, I will focus two time frame down the daily, which will be the 1 hour, confirm my confirmation to the downside. So on 1 hour, for example, we just confirm the break of this low, something like that. We'll retest around somewhere here and start to show this pair. For example, on NZD, I would say we are not in a counter trend if I find some setup right there, because I still think we are bearish on daily order flow, for example. So, and we'll be more focused on Kiwi, for example, than the Aussie. Excuse me. Okay, so yeah, want to see some bearish on this pair, at least towards this level right there. Okay. The next one is USDJPY. So USDJPY, we are bullish on monthly time frame from this low to this high. So I mentioned, let me zoom in, I wanted to see some retest around this level before continue higher, because we want to target this high, which is the top of the monthly order flow. You see, we want to target these highs. So yeah, we already test this level, which is very interesting. So let's see if we could rebound with this trend of the US dollar to target at least this high for the next week. Let's go down to the weekly time frame. So on weekly time frame, what do we see? Have some sort of trend to the upside, clearly. Maybe I mark up some imbalance right there where we could potentially target before continue higher. And if we pay attention, we also have this blue line, which represent also the yearly open. You see, this is the yearly open, so this could potentially be a nice support to find a setup to continue the movement to the upside. Okay, but we still have a strong support right there, because if I use, for example, this, for example, is the order block right there, which could be, which is overlapping with this imbalance. So on sell side, I will maybe expect some target of this level again, or even though lower, before continue higher. That's what I am seeing right now. A markup also another imbalance right there, but I don't really think we could target this right now, but maybe in the future we will see. Let's go down to the daily. So daily time frame, we are bullish from this low to this high. So if I take Fibonacci to measure, you see the 50% is around there. So yeah, expecting price to fall around this discount zone before continue higher will be a nice opportunity for me. Other than that, it seems like we are ranging right now. So let's see clearly on 4 hour. Yeah, you can clearly see on 4 hour we are ranging. So don't expect too much. We are ranging from this low to this high. So as long as we are ranging right there, not very interesting. The next pair is USDCAD. So on monthly time frame, what do we see is the monthly order flow is bullish from this low to this high, clearly. And if you remember, or if you follow my market outlook, you will remember that I want to see some retracement. You can see the discount price of the last monthly order flow is around there. You see, start right there. So you can see we never touch the 50% or the discount zone. You see, we price stop right there at this demand zone. You see, we test twice, but we never touch the discount zone. So in long term, I want to see some target towards these discount zones. It seems like we are rejecting this level, you see. So last week I expecting a continuation, because I want to see the strength of the US dollar, or the US dollar continue acting as a safe haven. But as you know, you already know, with the ceasefire, US dollar lose a little bit of its safe haven character. So that's helped the USDCAD to drop. As you can see, the monthly candle is dropping clearly. So could we see a continuation towards this discount zone? I don't know. This depends on all the geopolitical tension in the Middle East. Let's go down to the weekly time frame. So the weekly time frame, we still have a structure bullish from this low to this high, with this strong demand, which is maintaining the price. You can see this is holding price right now. I think if we break this demand, we could potentially finally continue the movement to the downside, targeting this higher time frame support. But it's not the case right now, because for this week, I see a potential strength coming from the US dollar, so maybe a potential rebounce around this point of control before continuing lower. This is a possibility on buy side. See on down on lower time frame, if we have some target right there, yeah, some imbalance right there could be a potential target on sell side, but you can see the daily for me is bullish. So this is just a retracement on down on discount zone where I want to find a continuation to the upside. That's potentially what I want to see. But I'm bullish on daily time frame from this low to this high. So you can see price is already on discount zone. So for me, with the strength, with a possible strength on the US dollar, I want to see some rebounds, maybe towards this zone, at least before continue lower. That's what I want to see. Let's go down to the 4 hour. On 4 hour, what do we have? Seems like price is dropping. We are we are overbought. I think we are overbought with the RSI. You can see where we overbought. So we pretty much reject the low of this demand. You see, it seems like we are rejecting this low. So yeah, the last 4 hour structure is bearish from this high to this low. So maybe expect some retracement towards this supply, something like that for this week. That's what I am seeing right now. Me, to be very, very specific and safe, I want to see some retracement right there, maybe a rejection of this high test on this supply and then find a setup to the downside. Right there. The next one is USDCHF. So USDCHF on USDCHF, excuse me, we are bearish on monthly time frame from this high to this low. Remember, I said there is a possibility that we couldn't see a retracement around the 50% because CHF sometimes acting as a safe haven. So we have a great pressure on this pair from we can see if we go back for the last years or decades, this pair is long-term bearish. So CHF is adding a lot of pressure on this pair. So yeah, we fail again to at least target this level. So price drop again. If I zoom in, we target this level right there. So let's go down to the weekly time frame. Weekly time frame, we are still bearish from this high to this low. So this this is just a retracement around the premium zone. And if you remember, before the ceasefire, I wanted to see some closure of this level, retest and a continuation. But with the ceasefire, US dollar losing strength for the last past 2 weeks. So we start to drop, you see. So now I think we are oversold. So on sell side, maybe if price want to continue lower, the next target on sell side will be this level right there I mentioned, where we could potentially target. On buy side, I expect price to can retest this level right there, which correspond to this level. Okay, let's go down to the daily time frame. On daily time frame, for me, it seems like we couldn't really break this high. If I remember, if I see zoom in clearly, so it seems like in daily time frame we are ranging between this level clearly. But I think on forward time frame we have a trend clearly. You can see we are bearish on forward time frame from this high to this low. So for this upcoming week, as I expect on sell side, target this low. If you find some setup to the sell side, on buy side, I want to target at least around this imbalance right there. So which correspond to this zone, which would correspond also to the premium zone of the last 4 order flow. Yeah, above the 50%. This will be this zone I want to target right there if we get some swing on USD dollar. Okay. But the price action is a little bit difficult because we can see before to confirm a retracement, we need to see some shift of structures. I mean, a break and close above this high retest and then taking buy setup. So as long as I'm not seeing this type of structure forming, I will not take the trade. We could potentially see another scenario, something like that, a drop, a rebound off of this zone, break of this previous high, and then some sort of head and shoulder, inverted head and shoulder, which could potentially give us a sign to buy this pair. Okay. So the next one is gold. So gold, we start to see some rebounds, as I said, off of this support zone since the ceasefire announcement. So let's go down to the weekly time frame. On weekly time frame, the trend is still up. You can see we are bullish. So this is just a retracement towards this weekly demand. So perfectly tap this zone, you see we reject. So a lot of buyer inside again around this zone to start to buy again this precious metal. So let's go down to the daily time frame. So the only problem I have with this instrument gold is, yes, long term is bullish, okay, but we have a daily order flow bearish right now. And since the US dollar started to lose its safe haven character, I thought the money will shift towards the gold. So, but we didn't see a lot of strength. Usually, when people move their cash from, for example, S&P indices or stocks, or even though the dollar, which is considered as a safe haven, they move their money to some other assets like gold, which also act as a safe haven. And this time we could potentially see some strong movement like that, some trend as we have saw in the past. But since the dollar is losing some strength, I don't see any strong movement right there, which could help me think that we could potentially continue higher. Instead of that, we start to observe some, for example, on S&P, which recover very fast. With this type of movement, I understand where the money is, and the money is really, really fluctuating on S&P, on indices or stocks. So, for example, if we go back to the gold, we don't really see this strong movement. So that's make me very cautious on gold, buying gold very strongly. So um, I mark up this imbalance zone where price is pretty much stuck. I would say we didn't really leave this zone, so I want to see some close above, and then maybe we could continue the movement to the upside. Okay, so let's go down to the 4 hour and 4 time frame. Yeah, so this is the daily order flow, you see, which is bearish right now. Price is currently at the premium price of the last daily order flow, you see. So as I said, I mentioned this supply zone, which reacts many times, once, twice, and we finally break with this peak, you see. So for me, this supply is not relevant anymore. So that's why I think we will focus now on this trend, which is bullish for me from this low to this high on 4 time frames. So for me, we could potentially see some retracement, a rejection of this low, and maybe a continuation towards this supply zone. This is the type of scenario I am saying right now. With the strength of the US dollar, I will not exclude that we pretty much drop lower, maybe retest around this demand zone before continue higher. This is a possibility. I will shift my bias on gold if we see maybe a close below this low. Then I will find some setup to the sell side. Okay. For sell seller, maybe with price came directly around this supply zone, and maybe find a signal to the sell side. So yeah, I'm still bullish on the gold, but I want to buy at a better price. But I'm not seeing right now a strong movement. We last week, at the end of the last week, we start to see some strong movement. You see, we with the reaction of this demand zone, but I don't know if this will be enough to push price towards this supply zone. I don't know, because the dollar is getting strong. I expect the dollar getting strong, maybe with some another rejection of this low, or a touch on this level to start by. That's for me would be my ideal scenario on gold. The next one is silver. Is a bit the same thing as gold. We start to see some order flow 4 hour bullish on 4 hour time frame, bullish from this low to this high. We already test on silver this supply zone right there with this rejection, so maybe expect some return towards this demand before continue buy again. So that's pretty much my plan on silver. I will shift my bias if we totally break this low, which will be my last line of defense. Then I will start to sell the silver. As long as we are not breaking this low, I still think we could potentially go higher. The next one is US oil. So since the ceasefire, we start to see some drop below the $100. I talk about this $100 barrel of oil, which is very expensive above the 100. So, and it's not good for economy. So with the ceasefire, maybe we start to see some kind of resolution or kind of end of this war conflict in the Middle East. We could potentially see a return of the US oil maybe towards the $65 or maybe lower. That's what we wish for the peace of the world, even though for companies and the growth in general, this will be very good for economy. But we are not politicians and we are not in the head of the United States President Trump. So we will see what will happen. Okay. So on weekly time frame, I talk about with the ceasefire some drop of US oils. That's what we had last week. Some drop. Maybe expect for the next week a continuation of this if we don't have another major news on buy side retests around this level and a continuation targeting this low, for example, on around $76, which will be the next target for the next week. On daily time frame, we start to see the shift of US oil to the downside, you see, so very interesting. On 4 hour, we had a trend, clearly. We are bearish from this high to this low, so yeah, I expect some continuation, maybe a return, a rejection of this high and continuation to the downside. Let me zoom in for you. We have, if for example, I measure my last 4 hour order flow on this instrument, you can see the 50% is right there. So you have some sort of zone supply right there on premium zone, which could be a nice potential zone around $86 to find some sell setup if price came right there. So this would be an interesting price to sell again the US oil. That's it. This is the end of the video. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. This will help me know that you always appreciate my content. Thank you for watching. Have a nice trading week and be very careful on the market. It was Josue, the part-time trader. I'm out.